Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is absolutely crucial if you want to understand how our modern world actually works. We're zooming in on a tiny spot on the map that practically dictates the heartbeat of the global economy, the Strait of Hormuz. So let's unpack exactly what makes this specific waterway the ultimate global energy choke point. Right off the bat, let's just ask the big question. Why is it so important, and why do we talk about it so often? I mean, you hear about it in economic forecasts, it's always lurking in the background of geopolitical news, and it basically hovers over every discussion about energy prices. But if we strip away all the noise, we really need to understand the raw, undeniable math and geography of this place.
All right, Section 1, the ultimate global bottleneck. So, just to ground ourselves geographically for a second, the Strait of Hormuz is this narrow waterway sandwiched right between Iran to the north and the Musandam Peninsula to the south. It connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and eventually the Arabian Sea. But here is the absolute most critical thing you need to remember. It's the only sea passage out of the Persian Gulf. Like, if you're moving energy by sea out of the Gulf, there's no detour. There's no back alley. You literally have to go through this exact corridor.
And how big is this corridor? It's just a 21-mile wide bottleneck. Think about that for a second. 21 miles. That's shorter than a standard marathon. Yet this unbelievably tiny geographical gap is the primary exit valve for one of the most resource-rich regions on the entire planet. It's like pushing a fire hose through a drinking straw. The physical space is just microscopic compared to the massive importance of what happens there. Which brings us to Section 2, millions of barrels every day. Get ready for a crazy scale contrast here. We're talking about roughly 20 million barrels of petroleum liquids squeezing through that tiny space. And that's not per year, or even per month. That is every single day. 20 million barrels day in and day out, constantly flowing through a choke point barely wider than a marathon route. When people talk about global vulnerability, it starts right here with this unrelenting daily volume. To really put that 20 million barrels into perspective against the rest of the planet, this one single 21-mile passage handles approximately 25% of all seaborne oil trade globally. 1/4 of the entire world's oil that travels by ship has to navigate through this one specific strait. No way around it. If you're looking at the global energy market, you simply can't ignore a location with a 25% market share of maritime oil transit. It's just a staggering concentration of trade in one incredibly tight spot.
But wait, it's not just liquid petroleum we're talking about here. It's liquefied natural gas, too. The strait handles roughly 20% of global LNG exports, and actually, the vast majority of that LNG is coming specifically from Qatar. So you've got this massive chunk of the world's natural gas supply, 1/5 of all global exports, relying on this exact same 21-mile-wide exit door just to reach the rest of the world.
So here's the core tension of the whole situation. On one side of the ledger, you've got this microscopic 21-mile-wide sea passage. On the other side, you've got 1/5, a full 20% of the entire world's petroleum liquids and LNG consumption moving right through it. It's honestly a precarious balancing act of global proportions. We literally have an immense amount of global economic stability riding on the unhindered flow through a geographical pinch point that is almost impossibly narrow.
Moving on to Section 3, Asia's vital energy lifeline. So where is all this energy actually going once it escapes the Gulf? Well, a staggering 80 to 84% of the crude and condensate passing through the strait goes straight to Asian markets. The overwhelming majority of those 20 million barrels a day we just talked about, they aren't heading to Europe and they aren't heading to the Americas. They are flowing directly east. This waterway isn't just a global asset. Functionally, it is the primary energy artery for the Asian continent. To get a bit more specific, we're talking about heavily dependent Asian economies, specifically India, China, Japan, and South Korea. I mean, these are 4 of the largest, most industrialized, and most energy-hungry economies on the face of the earth, right? Their factories, their transport networks, their sheer economic growth, it is all deeply tied to the uninterrupted flow of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. When you think about these nations, you realize that any disruption here doesn't just affect some energy companies. It instantly impacts the manufacturing and economic powerhouses of the world. All right, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. We started out by asking why we talk about the strait so often. Well, based entirely on the facts we've walked through today, this single sea passage, that tiny 21-mile width, the 20 million barrels a day, and the immense reliance of major Asian economies,
The answer is pretty clear. So what happens if a 21-mile gap, which essentially powers so much of Asia and facilitates a fifth of the world's oil and LNG, is ever disrupted? It's a massive question of profound global vulnerability. Understanding the Strait of Hormuz isn't just about geography. It is absolutely crucial to grasping the fragile, interconnected nature of our modern world. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.